this kid named Seth, but he's in first period. He would have lost his group of points at one point. He did that, like, I'm a turn on my cell phone thing. I'm a turn over here on my cell phone. And then, I don't know. But then later on he said something genius. So, he lost the point and he named it back. I gave you friends. You're over here, so you have friends. And Miss Asbury really loves you, which means I'm going to love you because we tend to be the same person sometimes. And then, I know that I've got to be in a hurry and I'm talking to her. Is there any way we can make your life easier and put you in first? We'll have to talk about that after class. Because you would like first. Not that there's anything wrong with second. Yes. Not that there's anything wrong with second. We love second. But Miss Brister's with me first. Just so you know. Okay. I know y'all were working on these yesterday after we did that group activity. Well, after we did that evil activity where you really weren't supposed to do anything. Can someone help me with number 1? Do I have a volunteer? Okay, I'm not going to be ugly today, but at this point I would normally pull the popsicle stick and be like, hey, I need to know what you wrote. What do you got? But I can be ugly. Yes, dear. Thank you, Angel.
I added 6 A's to 8 A's.
Uh-huh.
No.
And you got?
Oh, you said I didn't hear right.
Yes. No, like,
Oh,
good.
okay.
Good, sorry.
14 A's.
14S. And now what?
And then you add 5 plus 14. I mean, 5T plus 14.
And you got?
9.
Perfect. Okay, I love her answer. Because, well, it's right. I like that she put, we talked about my OC that she put it in alphabet order. S comes before T. So I like that the S term is before the T term. On the ACT, that's they tend to be alphabet like me. So, some people yesterday were having a little bit of trouble and they wanted to FOIL this out. How do we know this is not a FOIL problem? What is our hint?
Yesterday you told me it was because you had the addition sign.
Yes, and that Nick was saying the same thing. So the sign in between, because this plus sign right here, or this minus sign on that problem, we know we're actually not supposed to FOIL. So I know that there were a couple people yesterday who were, and if you're FOILing and you're remembering that, that's awesome. But you don't actually have to FOIL on that one. Okay, and then I had someone last period who I was happy they volunteered, but they went after this. They had this, and then they said 23ST. Are you allowed to do that? No. What rule is that person forgetting? You can't. Those are not. They're not like terms. They're not like terms. And see, the variables would have gotten you a point, and the like terms would have gotten you a point, Nick. Okay, can I have some help with number 2, please? Someone have an answer number 2? Yes, dear?
I added 11M and 2M to get 13M.
Okay.
And then negative 7N was positive 6N, and I got just N.
Just in. Okay, is there something wrong with this?
I put negative.
Oh, that would help. Is there something wrong? And I shouldn't write it. Is there something wrong with this? I see some head nods. Can you help me fix it? What should be the real answer? Hey, I appreciate any answer. Okay, you would have subtracted, and what'd you get as your final answer?
9M minus 1.
Okay, it actually should be the 13N. And let's talk about, because I'm with you too. It's, 9:15 in the morning on the 3rd day of school, and someone wants you to what? So let's talk about how I could have gotten here, because he's completely correct. It was 11. She just wanted to add it all. Completely get that. It is 11 minus 2, and you get 9. But it's negative 7 minus 6, so you should have gotten a negative 13. So what I'm going to show you in green is how I would fix that. If you made that mistake, which is no big deal, you probably made that same mistake on number 4 because it's the next one with a minus sign. So what I would do is I would distribute that negative sign. So I would have had 11M minus 7N minus 2M minus 6N. And then you can see, 11, negative 2. I see how you got 9. Negative 7, negative 6. I see how you got negative 13. So if you were the one who didn't get that perfect, what I would do to fix it is distribute the negative so it doesn't get in your way. Okay, can someone help me with number 3? Number 3. It's got the plus sign, so it's supposed to be a nice one. Be brave again. I think you had the plus sign. You guys, be brave.
Okay.
Yeah, Anne-Marie's going to, we'll make you be brave on 4. Ooh, yes. We'll be brave on 4. Anne-Marie, fix 3 for me. What is it?
I got 5e squared minus 2e.
5e squared, and the 2e. Okay, how did you get 5e squared?
I combined the like terms.
I see the 2 and I see the negative 3. But 2 and negative 3, should that give you negative 1? But do I write the 1? So I think it's just negative e squared. And then I agree with you on the 2e, but is it positive or negative? I forgot what you said.
I got negative.
Okay, negative 5, positive 7. What should it be? Positive. Okay. And then what I especially like about Anne-Marie's response is that she's doing it in descending order. Like, we're starting with the e with the highest exponent and then working our way down. And I know you're like, Ms. Compton, are you really going to be that picky? And we need to be, because on the ACT, they're that picky. In life, they're that picky. So we just need to start off strong and being picky. Are there any questions on 3? Other than, my God, Ms. Compton, it's been a long summer. Number 4. You ready?
I combined x squared with negative 2x squared.
Uh-huh. And you got
Negative x squared.
negative x squared?
And then I combined negative 3x with positive 5x and got positive 2x.
Okay. She did the x squared and the negative 2x squared, and she got the negative x squared. She did the negative 3 and the negative 5, and she got positive 2. That's going to be where her tiny little mistake is. What should she have gotten?
It's supposed to be negative 8x.
Okay, so what she's going to do, because she's good at math, what she's going to do to make sure she doesn't keep letting that negative trip her up is she's going to distribute. So she's going to have an extra line on her paper where she actually has x squared minus 3x, and then she's distributed that negative. So she has negative 2x squared and minus 5x. Because if she does what I did in pink, it might help her. So when she combines like terms, x squared minus 2x squared, I get negative 1x squared. Negative 3, negative 5, I get negative 8. Okay, and then, yes, dear?
I just forgot there is a warn on X. That's fine.
Yes, there is a warn. And you know what? A lot of people forgot that. And if you did, I bet if you already did number 6, you probably messed that one up. Any of the ones with just a variable without a number in front. Number 10. Probably not number 9 because you realized it was a 1, a negative 1. Okay, are there any questions on these first 4? Okay, Tylen is new to the class, so let me tell her and remind you that math workshops are not just bell ringers where I say on 811 what was the answer to number 3 and she writes that and gets all her points. It's not how it's going to work. Math workshops are going to be for real. We're going to keep practicing the same skill over and over again, and then she's going to have a test with a similar problem. So if I can pick on Tylen because I know her name today. I only know Tylen and Nick, and I'm tired of picking on Nick. I do know Sarah. I know a couple. I'm working on it, okay? Tylen doesn't know what she's doing, and she hadn't been practicing. She's not going to do well on the math workshop test, and it's going in the 60% category. She wants to do well on that. Okay. I'm going to hand you a piece of paper now to make your life somewhat easier. While I hand you this piece of paper, could you get out a blank piece of paper, please? Don't worry, it's not a quiz. I just need you to have a blank piece of paper. Okay, life is hard. And I already want you to do math workshop. I'm wanting to do ACT prep. I'm wanting to do all the math all the time. So to make your life a little easier, then you have a little less writing. I'm giving you the learning targets I'm writing on the board each day. They're in your hands now. You do not have to write those down. You do not have to write those down. Now, would it be smart of you to maybe put a date beside it just for your own brain? Like, hey, we did this on 8/11. just for your own brain so you can know like what day I did what in my life. Yeah. And then what's cool, if I actually had, I don't know why, I should have widened that column, whatever. Okay, what's cool is that as Nick learns, he can put a check mark. Maybe Nick, after today, he's like, yeah, I got that, so he puts a check mark. I have that skill down. Maybe Nick, after today, is still confused. He won't put a check mark there. And so when Nick comes to see me 0 period, I'm going to say, Nick, which things do you need help with? And he can say, I didn't understand the first one, but I definitely understand 2 and 3. And this way, Nick will know which ones he needs to study, is my thought. But that requires Nick to be on it, and, you know, Nick is Nick. So, we'll see. Okay, on that blank piece of paper, what we're going to do are 3 ACT prep problems. Now, our plan is to learn how to do better at this kind of a test. So when you actually take the ACT, you don't flip out. So there are 60 questions, and you're supposed to do them in 60 minutes. That's a lot of questions. It's a lot of questions. The good news is the first 30 are supposed to be the easiest. That's like typically those are the easiest. So if they're the easiest, that means you should go through them the fastest, the quickest. They should be the ones you go through pretty quickly. Those are the ones we're going to focus on for a while, these quick ones that you need to do or die and decide on. Because Anne-Marie needs to answer, let's say, 1, 2, and 3 within 30 seconds. That way when she gets to a hard one like number 41, she can actually spend 2 minutes on it. You know, like she knows if she just perseveres for another minute, she will get it. So we need her to fly through that first half, so on the second half, she can actually spend a little extra time. Okay, but since this is your first day with this, I'm going to give you more time than I should. I realize some people can't see. Maybe Anne-Marie just can't. And I'm sorry for that for today. I will post this on Google Classroom this weekend. If Anne-Marie needs to print out our practice test, that way she can hold it in her hands and look at the question, I totally understand. Okay, so here's number 1. I'm going to give you a full minute. I need you to pick an answer, write it on your paper. You can go. Okay, you got about 10 seconds. Now's your chance to just make a guess. You don't have something. Okay, stop. And now let's actually go over it. Why don't you talk to your group, see what answer you got. Maybe y'all are on the same page. And then we'll talk about what answer is correct. C. Okay, I heard some C's. I even heard a B. Okay, and then I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just gonna tell you like it is, because I would want someone to tell me like it is. There are some silly answers up here. So, which answer up here is silly? It's got to go. A. Clearly, Louise gotta have some sort of a chance, so it shouldn't be 0. Here's another silly answer up here. What is it? E. B is silly? E. E is silly. I think E's silly too. It says 5 officers. He's not an officer. Heck, they even capitalized not an officer. So I think E's silly. And I think there's one more silly answer. I think D is silly because doesn't that reduce? 2 goes into 6. 2 goes into 32. That's not even in simplest form. So I don't really think it's that either. So if I was guessing, I would have guessed B or C anyway. The correct answer is, it is C. You were supposed to do 32 minus 5, and you would have gotten your 27. So he had a 1 in 27 chance. Now, here's the thing that I didn't see a lot of people do. They didn't do any math. Now, was this an easy one and I think you just did it in your head? Totally. Are there going to be some like that? Yes. But like the next two we do are straight up geometry. How are you doing math questions without using your pencil? That I do not know. I'm not that good. Don't really know how you are. And then if number one just baffles you and you're nodding like I really don't understand, I'm sorry to tell you this. Math teachers, we do what we can. But when we tend to skip a section, it tends to be on statistics or probability. So if this made no sense to you, those are the kind of questions you need me to review the most because your teacher did not spend a lot of time on it. And it's not a big deal. It's just something we should spend more time on. Okay, here is number 2, and it is straight up geometry. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. I cannot. It is straight up geometry. You have a minute to select something, but you really don't need that long. With geometry, you either know it or you don't. Okay, we're going to call it because everyone has their pencils about down, and I'm at 57 anyway, so sorry for that last 3 seconds. Okay, talk to your group and see what you got. I'm dying to know what table 3 got because they were the first ones done. Okay. Okay. Anyone got something other than K? It's okay. Okay. So, okay. I have a love-hate relationship with geometry. I've taught it for the past 2 years. I really do love it. But here's what's annoying. There's not a silly answer up here. There's not. I mean, if I'm just straight up guessing, I would probably say not J, just because I see a lot of F's, and then I also see a lot of the letter C. So I would say that's why it's not J, and I probably wouldn't have guessed F either. But is this good logic? No. This is just me straight up not trying to Christmas tree it. So I'm just guessing. So that's not good logic. Now, I don't know what you did. I hope you wrote a congruence. You saw that congruent statement. ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So I'm hoping you at least played letter match, because you should have learned in geometry that the order of the letters is super important. So for instance, letter A has to go with letter D. They're both first, they go together. Letter B, it has to go with letter E. And then letter C, it goes with letter F. So I'm hoping you at least realize that. If I had done this problem, I'm sorry, anytime it says triangle, I draw me 2 ugly triangles. I pretend they're identical. They don't see my paper. A, B, C, D, E, F. And then I start reading through the answer choices. For instance, the first answer choice says, is AB congruent to DF? And no, they're not even on the same side, so that doesn't look true. If you had done this and drawn your picture, the only one that would have made sense is the choice that you chose. It is K. That letter C, angle C, really does go with angle F. So number 2 is K, but I don't know if you lucked into it or what. Maybe your genius is at geometry, and if so, then this third one is for sure for you. Here is the last one we're going to do today. I'll give you a minute on it as well. I mean, table 3 is just confident. Okay, we're going to call the tab on that one. There is one answer choice that I can eliminate. What answer choice can I just say no? Not that one. Okay, I'm going to say E. Why is that? There's a pattern going on. There's a pattern with those fives. 5, 5, 5, 5, not a 5. Now, if they had put 85, totally with you. I would have been like, I don't know. Now, they put 80 on purpose. They know that you kind of sort of slept through geometry, and all you really understood was something about 180, and 100 plus 80 is 180. So they left it there on purpose. What is the actual correct answer? C. Some people said C, some people said B. Okay, if I was guessing, and then again, back to this is just how I guess. Do I test well? I tend to, but I mean, this is a good life choice, maybe not. I would have said too big, too small. It's either 25 or 35. Now, is there actual math that I could do? Of course. What's great about the test, and not about my real life, is that on the test, you don't actually have to draw the picture. You can write all over the test they gave you. So, they tell you that this exterior angle is 100. They tell you that this remote interior angle is 65. There was something you learned about in geometry class called the exterior angle theorem, and it said that the sum of the two remote interior angles equaled that exterior angle. Again, I've taught geometry a couple years. I remember that. Do I actually think Nick remembers that? And I taught Nick. But I do know Nick knows this much. He knows that that is a linear pair. So what number can he put at the top of the triangle? He can put 80. And then you see why some people would pick E. But really now he needs to solve the triangle because the X is over here. How do we solve on a triangle? And what are they supposed to add up to? Okay, so you could have said 180 minus 80 minus 65, and you would have gotten X equals 35. Now, if you need me to write that 80, 65, that's 145. 180 minus 145, you get 35. This is all true. But, again, we're all worried about the time. You got that magic thing called a calculator. You should have done this kind of thing in your calculator. You don't need to write that down on paper. They don't grade your scratch work. They don't. Okay, so the answer really is C of 35. I don't know how Table 3 is doing it. Maybe they need to teach me their guessing strategies, but every single time, they're on it. Okay, you picked up a giant packet of notes on your way in. Let's look at that giant packet now. We're actually do algebra 2 a trig, and algebra 2 a trig. And to be honest, that's kind of a lie as well, because the first, I don't know, 2 chapters at least are just straight up review. Stuff you were supposed to remember from algebra, and you just don't. Or maybe you, I don't know, maybe you slept through that, I don't know. I don't know your life. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is number systems and how to classify numbers. Sounds strange, but it's kind of useful in our heads at least to think through what kind of number am I dealing with right now. So when we start classifying numbers and when we talk about different kinds of numbers, that's actually called a set. Okay, so today all we're going to talk about are different kinds of real numbers. That's what that learning target says. It says I can classify real numbers. Is there such thing as fake numbers? No. If they're not real, they're called, does anyone know? They're called imaginary. And we're not cool enough to go into that imaginary world with I today. We're not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole right now. We're going to keep it with the reals. The reals got enough going on. Okay, so the coolest thing on the notes is this chart. And we're going to keep referencing it. The R is obviously for real numbers. And the first kind of number we're going to talk about is a rational number. Well, since R stood for real, rational also started with R, bless its heart. So it got just a random letter. It got Q. So, just so you know, I think that's weird. Rational numbers can be expressed as a ratio, and you and I think of that as a fraction. And you know the cardinal rule in life, you can never have that denominator equal to 0, so B can't be 0. And then the most important sentence up there describing a rational number is the second sentence. The decimal form of a rational number is either a terminating or a repeating decimal. What does terminating mean? What does terminating mean? Like, what did the Terminator do? He terminated. What does that mean? It killed people. They had a set death. They were going to end. So an example of a terminating decimal is already on your paper. 0.125. It died after that. There is nothing else that came. It terminated. It ended. So if you want to remind yourself, that's a terminating. It ended. And then your least favorite kind are the repeating ones. How you love when you see that ... meaning it keeps on going. But sometimes there's a pattern. That's why it says a repeating decimal. It could have some sort of a pattern. For instance, the example on the screen, the 0.66, you already know what the next number is. It's 6. Or if I said 0.123123, well, what's the next couple numbers? 1, 2, 3. So we already know what's going to happen. If it's predictable like that, it's a rational number. In case you can't tell from our chart, and math teachers tend to write it as a fancy looking Q. You don't have to be fancy like me if you don't want to. Normal Q will work. Okay, if we look at our chart, it looks like there are a lot of rational numbers, and then not that many irrational numbers. There's probably just as many irrationals, but we tend to live in this rational world. You and I want things to work out and be perfect, so we tend to stay over here in math class. Okay, and then irrationals, we don't tend to talk about them as much, and there is one that is my favorite. It's already on the screen. It's the button on your calculator, pi. So 3.1415926, and then I don't know. There are some people who memorize like hundreds of digits of pi for fun. I'm not that person. Okay, it never repeats. You will never see 14159 ever again. It never comes up again. If you want to check me on it, you can go home and Google pi and see the thousands and thousands of digits the computer has now come up with. And the coolest thing you can Google is my birthday in pi. So my birthday is May 12th, so 0512. It eventually shows up in pi. Like thousands of decimals later, 0512 shows up. It's crazy. Okay, and there is another irrational number that also has a button on your calculator. Does someone know what that is? You never get to press it. It's the first class you're going to get to press it in. You wondered what it was this whole time. It is an alphabet letter. Nobody's talked about that? Strange. E. I wrote it cursive, but if you need to write it straight, you can. It's E. It stands for 2.17, and then I don't know after that. I probably should, but I don't. It is another irrational number, and eventually, second semester, we're going to use it. We're going to do math with it the way you did math with pi in geometry. Okay, so an irrational number is obviously opposite of rational. So if we go back to our sentences, it says an irrational number, it neither terminates nor repeats. It neither dies nor does it ever repeat. Good grief. And then what I think is most interesting is the sentence after that. Square roots of numbers that are not perfect squares are irrational numbers. So for instance, on the paper it has square root of 3. Would the square root of 9 be an irrational number? No, because 9 is a perfect square. Would the square root of 10 be an irrational number? Yeah, 10 is not a perfect square. So you can make a whole list of things. 10, square root of 10, square root of 11, square root of 12, 13, 14, 15, and then you get to 16. Well, that's a perfect square. So there are a whole lot of irrational numbers. Take a normal number that's not a perfect square, put a square root in front, it's going to be irrational. It's going to go on forever. It's not going to have a set repeating pattern. Okay, so I'm going to do it differently than I did last period because they looked at me like I was cray-cray. No, well, you're very smart. You got this. Okay, so irrational numbers start, irrational starts with an I, so it tends to be an I. You cannot be both rational and irrational. You can't. You can't be both. So on your paper, if you're trying to really get counted off on points, you're going to put the letter Q in, the letter I in the same thing. You can't be both rational and irrational. That doesn't make sense. You're either one or you're the other. Okay, and then we're going to talk a lot of subsets, so things that fall underneath rational. We're going to get more and more specific. So the next little, the darker layer, it says it's integers. And then they tell you at the top what an integer is. Then, and I read it like that. And the next one is W for whole numbers. And then my favorite, which will be your favorite too, is N, which is for naturals. Okay, so you have eyes. You can read just as well as I can. What is the difference between integers and whole numbers? And what do integers have that whole numbers don't have on their list? Negatives. So integers include negatives. That's how I keep them straight. The difference between an integer and a whole number is that integers include negative numbers. Now notice that on our list of integers, whole numbers, and naturals, they're all pretty numbers. No decimals, no fractions, just your favorite old pretty number. Okay, and then look at the list between whole numbers and natural numbers. What's the difference between a whole number and a natural number? It's a tiny one. Tiny, tiny difference. You can read better than I can. What's the difference? There's 0. The 0 is the difference. Notice on the whole number list it says 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice on the natural number list it says 1. So the difference is 0. Whole numbers include 0. Natural numbers don't. You would say, well, why is there a difference? And that would make sense. People, I don't know why there's not like a class on the history of math. I don't understand. They probably should be taught why numbers pop up. Natural numbers are what they started with first. If I go to Nick and I'm going to trade with him and I'm going to give him 3 chickens for his 1 cow, that's going to be an okay trade. I'm not going to give him 3 chickens for 0 cow. No. So that's how natural numbers popped up, is when people were trading. You need to trade my chickens with your cows. There's no way I'm going to make a trade for 0 cows. So they didn't need the number 0 back then. That's why naturals don't include 0. Okay, you've got too much going on in your life. If you want to copy some of the stuff we wrote up here into that bottom chart, you can. Otherwise, let's move on to that next page. We are going to work 1 through 8 together. And then someone in here is going to ask me a really smart question, and they're going to love my answer.
Smart as in like
Smart as in like, hey, is it okay if I do this? And I'm going to say, yes, it is. Okay, not smart as in you were a smarty pants, no. Okay. So what stinks is that I double-sided it. So you're going to want to flip back and forth between, I have 2 copies, so I'm special. You're going to flip back and forth between your chart and in your examples with yourself, and then, of course, the question. So the first one we're on is negative 185. What is negative 185? Is it rational, irrational, an integer, a whole number, a natural number? What is it? Okay, we know it's an integer. Why is it not a whole number or a natural number? Because it's negative. So if you wrote N, or if you wrote W, you would be counted off, because that's wrong. Is there more I can add to this list? I put Q. I shouldn't have put Q. I should put Z. Integer. Okay, is there more I can add to this list? And I dumbly gave away my own answer. Yeah, I can put Q because Z is a subset of Q. And what am I going to be able to put on every problem, probably? What numbers are we talking about today? Are we talking about fake numbers? No, we're always going to be talking about real numbers. So you're always going to be able to put the R. So if you're confused looking back on that chart, yes, negative 185 is in Z, but hey, Z is living inside Q, and Q is living inside R. So if you put Z, you can put Q and R. You can. Okay, and then we get to number 2, which is 4/9. What are we going to need to do on this problem? How do you know? That's how you know. So you know what she did for me to make sure that 4/9 was something that repeated? She typed it in her calculator. She got some decimal. She says it repeats. It did repeat. You want to make that note to yourself. So I need to write down, since it is a repeating decimal, it is rational, but it's also R, because every single one of these is going to be a real number. Okay, and then we get to the fun one of number 3, square root of 95. You type it in your calculator, and what happens? It's irrational because does it repeat? So if you need to make a note to yourself, you can say, or if you're just trying to make sure I'm on your same page, non-repeating decimal. Do you have to write all this stuff? No, I'm just trying to make sure everyone's with me. Non-repeating decimal, so that's why I'm going to say it is irrational, but even irrational numbers are still real numbers. So I can put I and R. We get to number 4, and you're super excited. I'm telling you, these are your favorites. Because it is a natural number. That would come up with mine and Nick's chicken and cow debate. But not only is it N, it's also... Oh yeah, it's going to be R. It's going to be a lot of things. Look back on the front on your chart. N lives inside of what? Circle N lives inside of circle W, and then circle W is living inside circle, and then circle Z is living inside square, and then we all know Q is living inside. So my gosh, you were so excited it was an N, you forgot N meant it was a subset of all of these things.
So basically, if it's a natural number, it's all of them except for one.
Yes. Yes. So you could write anything except the letter I, and we're good to go. And I think you're going to be the one that asked the question that I'm waiting for. But I'll keep waiting. Okay, and then we get to number 5, and you're like, Miss Compton, you stink. You tricked me. How did I trick you? The square root of 121 is 11. You were so concerned it was going to be some weirdo decimal, you forgot normal math stuff. Square root of 121 is 11. So what should I put with my list? It is rational, but it's natural. I can trade my 11 chickens, so I'm going to put the exact same list I put on number 4. N, W, Z, Q, R. It's all the things. You're almost to the question. I feel it coming. I feel it coming. Okay, then we get to number 6. It says it's a decimal, so automatically I know it's not an integer, it's not a natural number, it's not a whole number. So I'm either picking rational or irrational. Is it rational or is it irrational? Why is it irrational? It's not a repeating decimal, so we're going to say it's irrational, but it's also a real number. And then we get to number 7, and again, I stink and I'm trying to trick you. 24/8. It's just 3, which again is natural, so it's going to be a whole number, an integer, a rational number, and a real number. It's all the things. I swear if you don't ask for number 8, I'm going to tell you my answer. Okay, and then we get to number 8, and it says 0.37 with a bar.
It's rational.
So why is it rational?
Because the bar means it's repeating.
The bar means it's repeating, so it's really 37, 37, and it keeps on going forever, in case you've forgotten, because let's face it, you were just on summer break. So since it is a repeating decimal, we're going to say that it is rational and that it is real. Now, I'm going to pretend like you asked this question, because someone asked it last period, and to be honest, I was surprised they asked it, and it was a good question. Do you actually have to list all the things? Or should you just list the smallest thing that it really is? Like, for instance, shouldn't we just be smart enough, like, yeah, if it's a natural, then duh, it's a whole number, an integer, a rational, and a real.
It's actually like carbon just right there. All these together.
It does, but someone asked it last period, and I figured you were going to ask it next. So, is it a bad idea to write the whole list? No. But if Tylen is lazy, because let's face it, we are all lazy at some things, or she doesn't want to make a mistake because she's afraid she's going to put I when she meant to put Q, and she just doesn't want to go there. If you just want to put the smallest thing it is, like it is a natural, it is just a rational, then that's fine. Okay, I am going to love you enough to say we're going to stop talking there. However, I don't love you enough to take that homework away. So if you look on page 5, I mean I do, but I'm not going to. If you look on page 5, which is kind of hard to read, it says 5 at the bottom. Kind of a faded out 5. 1 through 12 is you. You get to classify rational, irrational, whole. You get to classify those things. You can work on that till the bell rings because you got a couple minutes. Or you can pack it on up. I don't care. Good grief. But Sarah already knows. Am I going to check that on Monday? Yeah, I am. So, just so you know.